Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the solar system and how our understanding of its structure has changed over time. Alright, so our title is going to be Models of the Solar System. And our essential question is, how has the understanding of the solar system, or how has our understanding of the solar system changed over time? As usual, we are doing Cornell notes, so you should have your title and essential question at the top of the page, and you should have two columns. The first one is for your questions, key points, important vocabulary, things like that, and your larger column is for your notes. At the end, you do need a summary. So let's get started. Now, when we talk about the solar system, today we know that the sun is at the center, and the planets and everything else orbits around the sun. We know that because we have a lot of nice technology that we're able to observe that. But we didn't always have that technology. So we didn't always know that the sun is at the center of the universe. Not the universe, the solar system. So, for a long time, people believed what was called the geocentric model of the solar system, and the geocentric had Earth at the center with everything moving around it. Now, the reason this model was so popular is because, people didn't have evidence to show otherwise. When ancient observers looked up in the sky, they noticed that the stars seemed to move in a circular pattern. So because of that, they figured, well, Earth must stay still and everything else goes around it. Now, the pictures at the bottom kind of give you an idea of how people saw a circular pattern. When you look up at the night sky, you don't just see stars going in circles. It doesn't work that way. But the pictures below, they're taken with cameras that have a very slow shutter speed. So what that means is they take a picture over a very long period of time. So anything that moves in that, frame for the picture shows up as a blur. So these blurs that you see, these lines, that shows the stars and how they move. Now, it's not that the stars are moving, it's actually that the Earth is spinning, so it looks like the stars are moving in a circle. But back then, they didn't know that. Now, the geocentric model was expanded on around the year 140 by a Greek astronomer by the name of Ptolemy. Now, in his model, Earth is at the center of the universe, and the planets move around the Earth. But they don't just orbit, they also move in small circles as they orbit. And you can really see that in the diagram off to the side with Jupiter. You can see it's kind of spiraling as it orbits Earth. So this was Ptolemy's model. Now, this model explained the motions that people see in the sky. So this was accepted for well over 1,000 years. It was actually over 1,500 years before other scientists really started finding more evidence to support a different model. And that different model is called the heliocentric. Now, helio means light or sun, so heliocentric means sun at the center. Now, the first person who thought of this model was actually before Ptolemy. So around 300 BC, an ancient Greek scientist by the name of Aristarchus developed the first heliocentric model, with the sun in the center and planets revolving around it. But this model was not accepted during ancient times. So a long time later, in the 1500s, a Polish astronomer by the name of Nicolaus Copernicus expanded on that heliocentric model. And he was able to work out the arrangement of the known planets. We didn't know about all of the planets then, but he figured out the arrangement of the ones that we knew of and how they move around the sun. People, again, not willing to accept this theory. They wanted to believe that the Earth was at the center and that's all there was to it. Now, Ptolemy and Copernicus both figured that the planets move in a perfect circle. Their models fit the existing observations pretty well, no big deal. But in the late 1500s, two Dutch astronomers, Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler, they made more accurate observations, and that led them to a conclusion that the planets orbit in an ellipse, or an oval. So what their model, their heliocentric model, looked like is seen below. You can see the planets are not going around in a perfect circle. They are going in an oval, so an ellipse. But still, people did not want to believe the heliocentric model. That started to change in the 1600s with Galileo Galilei, an Italian scientist. Galileo made a few important discoveries in helping the heliocentric model. And he used a telescope. Not a lot of people used them before then because they weren't around. And what he discovered was that there were 4 moons going around Jupiter. There's actually more than that, but he discovered 4 of them. And he also discovered that Venus, and we can see Venus from Earth very easily, he discovered that Venus goes through phases just like the moon. So he was able to come to a few conclusions based on these discoveries. First of all, the moons of Jupiter proved that not everything in the sky revolves around Earth. Most people thought for a very long time that everything revolved around the Earth. And since he found moons orbiting Jupiter, that showed, hey, not everything goes around the Earth. And he also reasoned that Venus would not go through phases if both Venus and the Sun orbited around the Earth. So these bits of evidence started to convince some other people that the geocentric model was incorrect. Now, this did not sway a lot of people into thinking that the heliocentric model was correct. But again, it started to convince some that geocentric, at the very least, was not correct. Now, what really made people start accepting the heliocentric model was Sir Isaac Newton. And this is the same guy that developed the laws of motion and the law of universal gravitation. And he used those to analyze the motion of the moon around the Earth. Now, through his analysis, he made a lot of calculations, a lot of observations, and his work basically proved that gravity and inertia work together, and that explained the motions of the planets and their moons. And we talked about that back when we discussed gravity. Now, all of this that he did, basically this took the last doubts that people had of a heliocentric model, and it just threw them out the window. So he basically was able to confirm that this heliocentric model is the correct model. And he did this this was the late 1600s, so over 300 years ago, before we really had any fancy technology. You know, he was able to do this just, telescope and calculations. Now, these days, we do have even more evidence that the sun is at the center of the solar system, and there's no doubt about it. And we have we have much stronger telescopes these days. We have different satellites. We have all sorts of space probes. We've sent people into space. So we know without a doubt that the sun is the center of the solar system, and everything else in the solar system goes around it, unless it's a moon, which goes around whatever planet it's orbiting. So that's how the way we view the solar system changed over time. And that's it for your notes. Make sure you write your summary. Yes, you have to. I know you don't want to, but you have to. Helps you remember stuff. And that's it.